creature spotlight on voles, and here I'm doing a couple different types of water voles. I'm working on the skeletal here, and I actually made the head way too small, so I actually had to enlarge it. When I was looking at reference, I realized the head was larger proportionately, but the original public domain reference I used for the skeleton actually made the head look a bit smaller. But when I was looking at actual reference of the animal, the head looked a lot larger, so I ended up enlarging the skull and the heads at the end. When you're working digitally, it's easier to enlarge, warp, distort, move, reshape, and tilt different things. So working digitally is superior in many ways, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't also work traditionally. I did the sketch for the skeleton on a layer underneath, and then I did the line art on the layer on top. As you can see, when I double checked my references, I realized that I hadn't made the spinal column long enough, and the gap between the edge of the ribs and the knee wasn't quite large enough. Although the creature tends to squish up into a big round ball a lot, when it's stretched out it does have a longer body. Voles are a small rodent related to the mouse, with a stouter body, a shorter, hairy tail, rounder head, small ears, and eyes. They have differently formed molars than the mice family as well. There are approximately 155 different vole species. The ones in this video shown are the water voles. Also referred to as meadow mice or field mice, they're in the family Arbicolinae, which is a subfamily in the rodent family, and they are closely related to lemmings and muskrats. They grow between 3 to 9 inches, varying by species, and are prodigious breeders. They reach sexual maturity at 1 month, and the females can have up to 10 litters per year, with a gestation that lasts for 3 weeks. They can have very varied populations, and average between 5 to 10 young per litter. I painted the line art on a layer above, and below that I filled in the solid color for the musculature. Then I went in to add different details on the muscular layer, which was on alpha lock in Procreate, so that it would only paint on the areas where I'd already filled in the color, and I wouldn't have to worry about going outside of the lines. Here I'm just adding all the details in to make it look more like an actual three-dimensional thing in space. Over top, I'm doing the line art layer for the fully reconstructed version. And now, using the same sort of method, I'm doing a fully reconstructed version. I created a solid white layer underneath so I could work very clearly on the line art here, and I'm darkening the shadows and outer edges here just to make it a bit clearer instead of using a very thin line version. You saw a little bit of me trying to correct it to make the head a bit larger, and eventually I'm going to correct it again to make the head even larger proportionally because it was still too small. Mice, moles, gophers, and rats, as well as shrews, are considered very similar animals, both in appearance and behavioral tendencies. Their diet is primarily small plants, yet like shrews, they will scavenge dead animals as well and can eat nuts and fruit when they find them. Here's a couple cute paintings, just done completely as paintings, done from public domain images and using a couple different layers. I did the background as one layer, I did a separate layer just for the animal, and then I did some top details on another layer. And for this one I'll end up using a multiply layer to do some darker shadows. For the other painting you'll see on the other side in a little bit, I didn't use the multiply layer so much. But you'll see me use a duplication, a flip, and a blur. Specifically for water voles, they are endangered in Britain. They're glossy brown or black in fur, with a blunt muzzle with small black eyes. Mostly hidden in the fur of their head, they have rounded ears, a dark, slightly furry tail, and large claws. Most often active in the day, they sit on submerged rocks on their hind feet and feed on grass held in the front paws. When startled, they dive into the water with a cute plop sound. When they swim, the head and back tend to remain visible. Many people also consider voles, and water voles in general, some of the cutest of all rodents. Other voles that are not water voles tend to not be very balanced with nature and the plants they eat, as they'll dangerously girdle small trees and ground cover, killing small plants and damaging by eating the roots and bases of plants in ways that are often lethal to the plants themselves. Voles also tend to target perennial bulbs. They use their excellent burrowing and tunneling skills, which allow them to stealthily access areas that are only clear after the plant has died. However, they disperse nutrients and health back into the soil with their droppings, particularly upper layers, so in the end, they're still a healthy part of nature. With an average lifespan of 3 to 6 months, but water voles known to live up to 2 years, but often less than that. Many smaller species rarely live longer than 12 months, although longer species of voles can live 2 to 3 years. As high as 88% die in the first month of their lives. As you can see, I'm using various brushes to paint in the fur of this water vole here. I used a custom brush I made myself called a tapered round brush. When I reverse stroke it the way I normally like to stroke with paintbrushes, it'll make a pointed tapered end, and then the other end will be thicker. This works extremely well when I adjust the size and pressure to do fur, eyelashes, and various other shapes and forms in nature, and I'm using various levels of opacity. I then painted the grass stalk in. I duplicated the vole itself, flipped it, and then blurred it to create the shadow. As you can see, there are many circular shapes involved with drawing voles, and when they squish up very adorably, they're basically two circles stacked on top of each other. It should also be noted that many predatory animals eat voles. Well, this video was a little hard to get out because I was having some trouble and was a bit sick, so I do hope no one minds that it's a little bit late, and I hope you look forward to next week's video, which should be up next Wednesday. Okay, bye!